Hi, welcome to the Ellis Talker Show, the 2024 first show of the year. I'm DV LeBron, and today my very special guest is Mr. Cliff Wiley, who's running to be your congressman. How you doing, Mr. Wiley?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on. Happy New Year. I know we've talked about doing this for a while, so I'm glad we were able to finally get together and make it happen.
Me too, man. I'm glad you're able to come on and talk to the people that you want to represent. I mean, this show is about you getting your word out. Um, you know, I wanted you to go ahead and introduce yourself to the people and just kind of tell them about you if you could.
Okay, sure. Again, my name is Cliff Wiley. I'm originally from Fort Worth, Texas, in Tarrant County, and I grew up there my whole life. And then after high school, I joined the United States Marine Corps, and I was in there for a little while, and then left the Marine Corps, and then had some odd in jobs for a while. And then when 9/11 happened, I needed to go back. And so I did. I wanted to serve some more. So I went back into the Marine Corps and served a few more enlistments then, several deployments in the Middle East, combat deployments that I'm super proud of. And then after the Marine Corps, I took advantage of those benefits and got my degree. And along with my degree, I got all my certifications to be a public school teacher in high school here in the state of Texas. And that's what I do now. I'm a public high school history teacher here in Corsicana, at Corsicana High School. And so that's what I'm doing now. And I just feel that our government's in a time now when somebody needed to step up and fill a void that we're missing. So I decided to go ahead and continue my public service by doing that.
So as a Navy man, I'm going to give you some grief about the whole Marine, and I don't know how you go from the crayons to the classroom, but you figured it out there, Marine.
It was a crazy transition, but we made it work.
Well, I'm glad you did. Like I tell everybody who comes on, every candidate, thank you for wanting to serve your community. It's big to put yourself out there, especially for the big seat, the congressional district.
Yeah.
So before I get into the issues, I wanted to ask you like constitutional questions. And the reason I do that is because it doesn't matter what you say. If you're not fundamental on the Constitution and what that means to you and what government's role is, everything else is just talk. So I'm going to ask you, what is the proper role of government in the lives of people, especially the federal government, since that's where you want to serve?
Well, the role of the government is to provide, as the Constitution says, general welfare for its people, right? To provide them a safe, secure country in order to prosper and to be able to fulfill that promise of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that is the only job. Their job is to stay out of your way and just provide that opportunity, because Americans traditionally are known for that hard work ethic. And if people just stay out of their way, they'll do amazing things. And I think that is the true intended role of our government. And we have gotten away from that some.
First Amendment is a big thing lately. People are very vocal. Things are very hot politically right now. And things could get kind of elevated when especially you running in condition. People have some really strong opinions, and they're going to have strong opinions to you. If you are elected congressman, you're going to be representing them to the federal government, and the First Amendment comes into play because people are going to want to talk to you. They're going to say stuff that it's going to be rough. How do you deal with people who don't agree with you?
Well, just because someone doesn't agree, like let's say you and I had a disagreement on a certain issue, that doesn't mean I'm right or that you're right. My job as a representative is to represent the overall majority of the people in the district. And I want as much input as I can possibly get. And that's one of the things that I'm really big on once I win. I'm going to give people the opportunity to participate in this process like they've never had before. All right, we're already in the works with some different ideas, be it websites or apps that are going to allow registered voters in the district to be part of the process. Again, like I said, like they've never been able to before. And we're super excited about that. And as I've been kind of, fishing it out there to some different people, they're super excited about having that opportunity because they've never had that before, which is, again, another one of the reasons. There's so many reasons I'm running, but I feel like I've always got input to give, and nobody's ever bothered to take the time to ask me what my opinion on a vote or an issue was. And I feel like I have things to offer. And so I want to make sure that everyone in the district has the same opportunity that I felt that I've always not been able to have. And so that's a big deal for me. And so whether I agree with it or not, I want to hear it. And I will take every single person that contacts me, I will take their point of view in consideration when, anytime before making any votes on the House floor.
So transparency and communication are big to you. That's
huge,
something
huge. Well, but that's the point, DV. Like a lot of people forget, especially, and I've realized this on the campaign trail. People look at this as a position of power, or somehow a representative is on a pedestal. I think it's the other way around. I'm doing this huge job interview where I'm going to have 800,000 new bosses, right? And I've never had a job in my life where I didn't have to report to my boss every single day. And I plan to continue that same, ideology with being the representative of Texas 6.
The Second Amendment. We need to know what you, or the people would want to know what your thoughts are on the Second Amendment, because every time there, unfortunately, somebody that's crazy or has some issues, decides they want to commit unspeakable evil. There's big cause for things, and there are things that can be done and things we shouldn't. Where does the Second Amendment, what does that mean to you, and what are the things you support and don't support?
Well, there's nothing about the Second Amendment that I don't support. I'll start with that part. But I mean, out of the 27 amendments the Constitution has, the Second Amendment is to me, it's one of the most clearly written amendments there is. I mean, it shall not be infringed. I mean, it can't lay it out any clearer than that. And I would never support any legislation that would go against that. And let's say, for example, because this is important, DV, let's say that there is something that comes up that goes against the Second Amendment, and everybody in the district wanted me to vote for it. As much as I respect everybody in the district, the Constitution does come first. So the Constitution is first, and then the people of the district are second. And so I'm always going to take in the will of the people unless it goes against the Constitution. And I'm 100% behind the Second Amendment, and always will be. I think that's the Second Amendment protects us against so many things, for whether it's foreign invasion, over a tyrannical government, all these things. We have that as our security blanket, if you will.
And it's been going on for years, and every year, all these years, they reauthorize it and people talk about it. And this goes into the Fifth Amendment, FISA courts, Patriot Act, those things that are going where it gives authorizations that probably are not proper right now. Can you speak on that?
Yeah, I was extremely disappointed in our incumbent, our current representative, that voted for this NDAA last month, which had that extension to the FISA, that Section 702 of the FISA in it, which is going to allow the government to keep surveilling American citizens without a warrant. And it's unbelievable that we have these government agencies that are full of unelected officials that are making and enforcing all of these rules. It completely goes against the Constitution, if you ask me. The legislative branch was set up as the single branch that's created to create legislation. It wasn't intended to have with these other bureaucracies create these and enforce these other rules that we have to follow, especially unelected officials. And so that's one of the things that's going to be on the chopping block as much as I can possibly get done.
There's a lot of talk about the administrative state and how big and cumbersome the government is, and how the Congress has kind of delegated their authority to these bureaucrats, and they do different things with different rules, and there's always rules, and those rules are basically law. Yep. Without you voting on them. So can you speak on your thoughts on that?
No, absolutely. And that's kind of what I was pointing at. And I feel that Congress, since the Administrative Procedures Act, passed in the 40s, that Congress has slowly been delegating their job duties away to these agencies. And so I don't know what it is really that these guys do all day anymore, because they've delegated so much of their responsibility out to these groups that, I mean, they can just kind of hang out. They're able to show up at 10:30 and then leave at 2:00 every day, because I'll follow that. And if they could take some of that power back, work a little longer every day, you're right, their salary sure justifies it, then they can take some of that power back and do things the way that they were intended to be.
Many congressmen that are in there, they've been there a very long time, and it's very hard to get an incumbent out once they're in there. And then the crazy thing is, like, there's even and this is the sad part about it. There's a guy who actually traces Nancy Pelosi's stock trades and makes money. They're very profitable by tracking the trades of the stock trades of congressmen. And it's they're staying for life. They're making a whole lot more than what they're getting paid. And there's a lot of stuff going on with that. One of the most popular subjects with both parties on both ends when you ask is term limits. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on term limits?
I am 100% behind term limits, but I'm also realistic. I know that Congress will never vote themselves out of a job. Now, just a few months ago, they held a vote on it because that was one of Kevin McCarthy, when he was still speaker, that was one of his guarantees that he made when he was first getting the position of Speaker of the House. And they actually held the vote, but they held it in the House Judiciary Committee where there was only 38 or 39 people, and the vote failed 19-17. And so that vote never made it to the House floor, which I already knew it wasn't going to. And now all these Congress men and women are able to say that they support term limits, knowing that they'll never have to publicly vote on it and actually put that on paper. And so it'll probably never happen. So I think that we as voters need to find candidates that are willing to have self-imposed term limits. For me, 3 terms is what I'm looking for, which would be 6 years. And if the people of the district are very adamant and we're like, Wiley, we need you one more term, I'll do a 4th, but that is it. And then once that maximum of a 4th term is over after 8 years, I will help find a replacement, do a proper turnover, right? Just kind of how we did back in the day in the military. Here's what we've been doing. Here's what's working. Here's what's not working. You know, make sure you call Patty in Hillsborough every Tuesday, you know, because she wants to hear from you, all those type things, right? And then I'm going to come back to the classroom. I'm a teacher now, and when I retire, you know, from working in my life, I will retire as a public high school teacher. I am not looking for a new career, a new job. I'm going to treat this just like I did my military service and my combat deployments. I'm going to be away from my family. I'm going to have to do some hard work while I'm there. I'm going to miss everybody back home, but we've got things that need to be done, and we have to have someone willing to go up there to do them. And so that's what I'm trying to get done.
There are many issues, and since you are an educator and you mentioned that, let's go into education. Okay. Education in America has been quite interesting, and even though that is mostly a state and local purview, the federal government's money dictates a lot of the terms, because that money comes with a lot of strings. You saw that with ESSER funds when they came down. The title, what is it? I forget the title of it, but there's a lot of things that are coming down from DC to the schools, and it's tied to the money that they give them every year. What are your thoughts on that? And what kind of bill, what would you suggest that they do better on the federal government side to help these local schools?
Well, I think the Department of Education needs to go away, right? And maybe not entirely. I think it needs to go from what it is now. And I think they need to lose about 90% of it. And you said, and you nailed it when you said that the money that they're giving to public schools has all these strings attached to it. And I think that's where they're dropping the ball. If you want to help fund these public schools, I don't have a problem with that. If the government wants to help fund these public schools, fine. But you can't have strings attached to them. All right. And what I mean by some of these strings, especially, are these standardized testings. Now, I know a lot of this is going to get into the state level, but that's standardized testings are also part of the strings from the Department of Education. And so as a teacher, I get frustrated where you're having me grade all of these papers and assess all of these students' abilities throughout the school year. We give them a report card at my school every 9 weeks, right? And that report card basically tells you how the student is doing. Is the student grasping this information? And then at the end of the school year, you're kind of saying, all right, teachers, I really don't care what you had to say about the students' learning. We want to know about our own test. So I think it's kind of one of those things where you either trust the teachers or you don't. Right? Because with these standardized tests, you have too many teachers that aren't teaching the way that they would like to, because there's so much pressure to teach certain information to make sure they get a certain score on a test so their school report card looks good, you know, as a district or whatever it may be. And I just want to get rid of all of it and let the teachers, the local school boards, and the parents of the students be the one that are dictating what their students are learning, not the government.
A lot of the times it's been a long time since, and this is a little bit shifting gears, it's been a long time since the government passed a budget on time, an actual balanced budget, a budget where trillions and trillions and trillions in debt. There's going to be a lot of bills, a lot of stuff, a lot of, feel good stuff that comes in front of you. What are your thoughts on the debt and taxes and passing these bills, just fly by night, those last minute Christmas Eve appropriations that pass? What are your thoughts on that?
When I told you I want to look at this as a public service, I mean that. And and specifically, I was so mad when Congress went on Christmas break with so many issues still on the table. Hey, sometimes in public service, you're gonna miss a holiday. That's part of it. That's part of public service, right? And so for them to pass that NDA Act right before Christmas so they could go on break, that really upset me. And also, they're doing all of this at the same time. Our border's wide open. Stay and get some of these things done before you go home on break. And when they come back from break, they're only going to have, what, a week and a half to get it all solved, or they're going to have to end up passing their fourth CR bill, which I'm going to get furious again once they do that. Their job is very specific on what they have to get done, and there's plenty of time to get it done. And if people don't have the moral fortitude and the backbone to get those things done, then they need to be replaced with somebody who is willing to get them done. And I'm willing to do that. And if it means I miss Christmas one year, then I miss Christmas. It won't be the first time.
You mentioned the border, and so I'm going to run into that one because that's huge. There's over, I want to say it was 10 million since Biden entered office, 10 million illegal immigrants that have come over. Like we broke the record in December. It was like 200 and some thousand people came in. We're talking city-sized people. Like there is nowhere in Ellis that is the entire Ellis County, and plus just last month, twice of Ellis County that came in last month. Some of them military age males, most of them males from all different kinds of countries that came in. There was a congressional delegation that went down, and the cartel just decided to go ahead and make sure that nobody showed up to that sector to make it look really. The cartel went ahead and they shut that area down today when they went.
I saw it. I was watching.
They shut down, and it's funny because I was told that they shut it down. So there's a lot going on down there with the border and people coming through. What are some of the things that you'd like to see? And if you were elected, what are some of the bills that you'd like to propose to deal with the border?
Well, I'd like to bring back, first of all, the Remain in Mexico policy right away, because you have to stop the bleeding. One of the things in the military doing training, it was always stop the bleeding, start the breathing, right? We have to stop the bleeding before we can do anything else. I went down to the border myself because I don't trust the news that much. So I was like, I don't know if I can trust what I'm seeing on TV. So I made the drive down there to Eagle Pass. And what I saw was, it's indescribable. And the day that I was there was the Texas National Guard, the Department of Public Safety, and the Border Patrol. So 3 different law enforcement agencies there, and all working together. And not one time in the 2 days I spent there did I hear one single officer say, stop, go back, you can't come here, go on top of the bridge instead of under the bridge, whatever it may be. I didn't hear it one time. And when I went to go approach them and ask them if they were ordered not to say those things, their only response was, we're not allowed to comment. They wouldn't talk to me about it. And so that was one of the most frustrating parts when I was there. It's not just the sheer number, but they had it set up to funnel people to where the officers were. So once they did cross, they could be, funneled into a group, processed, put on a white bus, and shipped out. And not, again, and the most furious part was not one time did someone say stop. Not one single time in 2 days I was there. And so we've got to stop that bleeding. And then once we stop that bleeding, I don't think this is that hard of an issue to solve. Allow Border Patrol to do their jobs and stop people from coming across, because I truly believe it's intentional what's happening right now. Right? You have a government that's suing the state of Texas for trying to stop it, which tells you that they don't want it to be stopped. Or otherwise, why would they be suing the state of Texas? Makes no sense. It's insane. And it's just, you just have to put common sense policy in place. Hey, nobody else comes in. If they come in, that's a felony offense. Arrest them, deport them. That's it. It's not complicated. And it's not that I don't want anyone to come over. I welcome anybody who wants to come. Just do it the proper way. And I do agree that the proper way could be fixed, right? To where it's not so difficult. Excuse me. But it just seems like nobody wants to do it. But I don't. And what they're doing right now is they're saying they're fixing the big problem while they're letting everybody in. They need to stop that bleeding and then fix the problem.
What does comprehensive immigration reform look like to you? What would that be to you?
Well, I think about it, and it's like, what information do we need from a person that wants to become a U.S. citizen? Right? What information is it that we need? We need probably what? And this is kind of just off the top of my head. I haven't written this policy yet, but you need their name and their background and their work history, and you have to do the background check on them. And I just don't understand why this process is taking people 7, 8, 9 years in some instances to get done. I think that makes our country look bad, because we want the world's best and brightest to come here. I believe that. I think most people don't have an issue with immigration. I just think that everyone has the problem with people coming in illegally. And if we can get a process in place that's simple and effective and reasonable, right? Have a reasonable, filing fee or whatever it is that people can actually afford. So they're paying the actual filing fee instead of a coyote. Then more people would be more motivated to do it the correct way because they would be able to do it the correct way.
Yeah. Yeah. They do end up paying a coyote. I mean, it's the real thing. The cartels are running this. The Mexico is a narco state. They are controlled by the cartels. They come up to the cartels and they get paid by the cartels, and it's a big mess down there. And those are the things that don't make the national news so much, but it's happening. And if you talk to any other border agents, they tell you it's all cartel. They know they're down there. How could we deal with the cartels? How do we deal with Mexico? We have a narco state to the south. We're worried about a border in Ukraine. How about this border and the cartel?
If the president if the president decided to use military force to control that situation with the cartel, I would more than likely support that with the support of people in the district. And again, and when it comes to voting on some of these things, these are the type of issues that I've got to talk to the people of the district about. But me personally, I would support military force to help stop that bleeding, because the cartel is part of the bleeding. When we have, I don't know how many it is a day of people dying of fentanyl and things that the cartel is sending across the border, right? That's part of the bleeding that I'm talking about that we've got to stop, because it's getting out of control and it gets worse by the month, I think. And so whatever it takes to get done, we need to get that done. That's the most important thing, is stop the bleeding.
There's a lot of talk about kids that have gone unaccounted for. They come in and, hey, I'm their uncle. And there's no real verification of that. And these kids are just going somewhere in this country and God knows where. And when you ask for accountability on that, you're not really getting them. If you were elected to Congress, what are some of the things that you'd like to see made law to prevent that or deal with that? Sex trafficking in general.
Yeah. And man, that's that movie. I don't know if you've seen it or not. That movie, The Sound of Freedom, and being a dad of a young daughter of that age, of that girl in the movie, that movie tore me up. And it just really opened my eyes. And I knew it was going on, but to kind of see it on film, on the TV in front of me, man, it just ate me up. And knowing that those things are going on, it's just, what do you do to stop it? You defeat the cartels, because they're the ones that are doing it. I think it all falls under that same umbrella of stop the bleeding. And I'm not trying to keep saying that, but I think the cartel is the main cause of so many of these issues, that I think if we can eliminate that threat, that motivation for people to rely on the cartel for all these things, then we can solve a lot of these problems. And one of the things you said, and I don't know how accurate it is, but I read this the other day, that there are certain illegals coming across the border, collecting whatever that amount is, $2,200 in a phone or whatever it is. And then they go back to Mexico and they're making that same loop 4 times a month, because the accountability of the people coming across is so bad that the same people are able to do that. And they're making almost $8,000-9,000 a month doing that, which is just unbelievable.
It's a racket. And I'm actually trying to get one of the Border Patrol Union folks on to talk like extensively about the things that are happening down there that are not showing up on TV, because there's so much. And I got Border Patrol friends, and the stuff that they tell me, it's like, wow. And you saw it. You went down there and you saw it. It's like you can't make this stuff up, and nobody's really talking about it. And that's the weird part.
And not to interrupt you, but just to add on one more thing, and keep in mind too, I'm still just a normal citizen, just like you are, and just like the people watching this podcast are. I don't have access to probably 90% of the information of what's really going on. You know what I mean? And so once I get there, once we win this election, which we will, and we get to Washington, D.C., and I have access to all this material and information, then I can pull back some of these curtains that maybe we don't even know exist yet, right? And really let people know what's going on. And that's what I intend to do. Because I always wonder myself, what is going on up there? Like, what information do they know that we don't know? And that's the stuff that I want to let the people in Texas 6 know.
One of the things that I thought to myself when this stuff started happening in Israel, and I was appalled by the killings, and it was horrible. It's the kind of stuff that we saw out there in the dirt. It's just that it's awful, and it's what happens over there. But I thought to myself, I don't want to lose one more drop of American blood on that soil. I don't want to lose another brother. Whether I lose them there, or they can't take with what they had to deal with over there, and I lose them here. So I don't want to lose another one. We got a bunch of assets over there, and I mean, I'm a Navy man. I know what a carrier can do. A carrier can wipe out a country, and we got 3 of them over there. There's a lot going on over there. What are your thoughts on Israel? And then we'll move on to Ukraine.
Yeah, my thoughts on Israel is that Israel, I don't think, needs the support that a lot of people think they need. I think Israel is pretty capable. The Iron Dome system, I do think that we should continue to help keep that up and running. But they have a very reliable military force. And I know the one thing they surely don't need is Joe Biden telling them how to fight their war. I mean, if I was Israel out right now, I'd be like, Joe Biden, shut up, right? Let me do this. I got it. Right. And now we're trying to put all of these strings possibly on the money we're sending Israel, unless they do it the way we want them to do it. I don't agree with that at all. I believe in supporting Israel because they're a valuable asset in the Middle East. Right. And the intelligence we get from Israel is extremely valuable. Now, I think a lot of people don't realize, unless they've been there, which not many people have, but war is ugly. War sucks. Right. I get it. Right. So you hear all of these protests about, people dying. Well, that people dying in war. That's what happens in a war. And you can read any history book on any conflict in the history of the world. And you're going to read about the casualties that happened as a result of that war. And it sucks. But I don't think dragging it out longer is going to make the casualty numbers any smaller. Let Israel go in there and do what they need to do, demolish Hamas. And then once it's over, which won't take Israel very long, if you ask me, if they do it the way they want to, then they can start to rebuild from there. But I think the longer they drag this out in Israel, the more casualties they're going to have in the long run.
Billions and billions and billions of dollars.
War makes a lot of people rich, DB.
Oh, yes, it does. And I saw that. They let me tell you, I got in the wrong racket. Yep. There's billions of dollars that roll off the tongue of President Joe Biden when it comes to Ukraine and how he wants billions for this and billions for that, and to support that cause. And we got to stop the Russians and etc. What are your thoughts on what's going on over there? And what would you like, if you were elected to Congress, what would be the things you'd be pushing for?
I want no more money for Ukraine. I want to be very clear about that. I don't think Ukraine deserves $1 more of U.S. taxpayer money. And here's why. Everyone says that, and our current representative says this, the reason for the money for Ukraine is if we don't give it to them, once they defeat Ukraine, they're going to continue into other nations. And I don't think that's an accurate statement. Russia is having a hard time with Ukraine, who is not a very capable military. And so I don't know what makes people think that once they deplete all of their manpower and military supplies in Ukraine, that they're going to have the ability to go against UN nations. Right? It's just not going to happen. It's not possible. I don't think Russia's stupid enough to even attempt it. Right? And so I don't know what our strategic advantages are to continuing to fund this war in Ukraine, but I wouldn't support sending $1 more taxpayer funded dollar to Ukraine.
And there is a lot going. There's a lot going in accountability. It's something that I plan on asking the congressman about accountability when he comes on, the incumbent. But
yeah, and you're going to get an answer that says, well, they're tracking this and that, but we're taking the word of a corrupt government before the war even started. Ukraine it's not like they're exactly known for being, a shining beacon of an example of how our government should be run, right? And so we're taking the word of that government on how they're spending our money. And then when Zelensky comes over to Washington D.C. and I see all these congressmen with their arms around him and taking selfies. It's too much for me. I would not be one of those people.
It's a lot. This presidential election is going to bring some, it's going to be interesting what happens in this next year. I mean, it's going to be rough. This political season is probably the roughest that I've experienced in my lifetime. And, what are your thoughts on 2024 and, who gets elected? Who would you like to see in that main office? And can you speak on that?
Yeah, well, in the presidential primary, on the day that I go vote for myself, I'm also going to cast my vote for President Donald Trump. Now, my vote for that counts just the same as yours does, and everybody else in the country. Right? We're all worth one vote. That's who I would like to see as president again, because I think he was one of the most effective presidents policy-wise we've had in a long time. Now, if something happens and he's not the one that's going to win the presidential primary on the Republican side, I'll support whoever it is. I like all the candidates. They've all got some good things and some bad things about them. But me personally, I'm supporting President Donald Trump for the primary. And I look forward to working with him. And while I'm on that, DV, I want to make sure people also understand, because I hear this a lot on the campaign trail. Well, you support Trump, therefore you just lost my vote. Right? And I want to really emphasize that my vote for president counts the same as everybody else's. And I do. And being a student, a constant student and continuing student of the Constitution, I understand that our government was set up in three distinct branches of government for a purpose, right? Legislative, executive, judicial, right? And they're all there to keep each other in check. And just because I support somebody for president doesn't mean that I'm trying to link the executive branch and the legislative branch together so they can kind of work in secret to get more things done. No, they are still separate branches of government that need to check each other, right? And if that makes sense, hopefully that did.
No, it does. It makes perfect sense. There is a blurring of the lines that are happening
Yes.
in our government, and there's a little bit too much executive, more judicial than the Constitution ever meant, than the founders ever meant for there to
Amen.
be.
Yes.
There's a lot going on in there. If there is, and I'm about to give you the mic so you can speak to the people of CD6, but if there was something that you can change, that if you went, like, and this is a hypothetical, but it gives a sense of your mindset. If you could go to Washington and change one thing, you can make that change. What would that be?
That would be, and that's kind of something we touched on earlier. If the very first thing, if I had kind of my genie wish, would to be eliminate the administrative state. I would give all of that authority back to Congress the way it was truly intended to be. That would be the first thing that I would do. And I don't know if that's the answer you were looking for, but I think that's one of the most important things that we could possibly do to get us back on track to where we need to be.
I didn't ask you, but if with all the border stuff, if you were elected to Congress, would you vote to impeach Mayorkas?
Absolutely, I would. Dereliction of duty.
I wanted to ask you, if you're elected to Congress, will you be opening your door to lobbyists?
Well, I'm sorry, say that question one more time.
If you were elected to Congress, will you be opening your door to lobbyists?
Oh, no, and I can tell you right off the bat, and this is where I'm going to start rocking the boat on day one. So right after all the freshman congressmen and women are sworn in and they have the big lobbyist dinner, I won't be there. I will boycott that dinner and send a clear message to everybody that I don't play their games.
Sounds good. Well, unfortunately, this is where, I'd love to talk to you forever, but we kind of run out of time. But I'm going to go ahead and shut up and give you the mic to speak directly to the people of CD6.
All right. Hey, everybody in Texas 6, I'm just as tired of everything that's going on in government as you are. And that's the reason I'm running. You need to have somebody who's not going to go on the campaign trail like they always do and give you the same promises that you keep hearing. Hey, if you vote for me, we're so close to getting this solved. Sorry, I had a phone call come in. We're so close to getting this issue solved that if you vote for me for one more term, man, we're right around the corner from getting it solved. But then 2 years later, hey, we're so close to getting it solved. Vote for me again and we'll get it knocked out. Vote for somebody who has not been groomed for this position, who has the ability to go in and fight, and who's not motivated by money. So they have the ability to say no to lobbyists and to all these PACs and super PACs and corporations that are just going to line the pockets of your representatives, right? My wife and I are both public school teachers, and that's what we love to do. Help me continue my public service by voting for me in the March 5th primary as your representative for Texas 6. If you have any questions for me, please visit the link. It's right here down at the bottom of the screen, wileyforcongress.com. My personal cell phone number is on almost everything that I publish. Call me, shoot me a text. I will answer you myself, and we'll get everything figured out. If you have any questions, we'll get them answered. Day one.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, man. It was good to have you on. I appreciate you coming on and speaking to the people of Ellis County and beyond, the Texas CD6. Appreciate your time, Cliff. Can you hold on after the show real quick?
Absolutely. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.